O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. I will send him against a hypocritical nation. Against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge, to take the spoil, to take the prey, to tread them down like the mire of the streets. But he doesn't mean it, neither does his heart think so, but it's in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. Are not my princes altogether kings? Is not Calno, as Karshemesh is not Hamath?
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing the book of Isaiah. I thought maybe we wouldn't be able to continue our study at all because my, at least, for with a somewhat of a delay because of my ISP problems. And I'm going to be changing ISPs this month, and so there probably will be a week or maybe two where there are no studies, or maybe I'll upload them. I thought it went okay. I felt like it was live. Maybe I'm just so used to doing it live now that it doesn't matter. But anyways, let's continue with Isaiah 36. And I do think, well, because what happened is my ISP, my data reset. They have the worst business plan in the world. Instead of offering me a steady connection all month, they offer me 1 week of blazing fast speeds and the rest of the month of garbage. That's what HughesNet offers. And I'd like to write them a letter telling them what a terrible business model that is. Because what I don't want 25 kilobits per second. I just want 5 kilobits, like regular. Instead of it like the other day, it dropped off every 10 seconds. And I'm like, no one's going to want to watch that. Nobody got time for that. All right, chapter 36. It begins a historical section. I mean, the whole thing is historical, but a less prophetic in the way that it's written. Though the truth is, the books of Kings are often referred to as the former prophets, Samuel and Kings, because beginning with the prophet Samuel, who is also the judge of Israel. And then at the beginning, it was not, the judges and the prophets were almost like similar. Except the difference between a judge and a prophet is a judge is pretty much official, like the official leader, meaning he's kind of the government. When the kings were established under Saul, the Lord said to Samuel, don't feel bad. They haven't rejected you. They've rejected me because I was their king. Samuel had been the de facto ruler, though, on earth, as judge. And when they had kings, though, the roles of the spiritual leader were diminished. And the king became a kind of spiritual leader, but he wasn't. David, though he was a man of psalms and inspired of God, he also had prophets that spoke to him the word of the Lord, like Nathan, who confronted him after the adultery with, not just adultery. Actually, Nathan didn't bother him about the adultery. It was when the murder that followed the adultery is when Nathan came to him. And sorry about I have an allergy this morning. Great tickle up here. And nice clean sinuses too. Also, if my head seems stiff, it's because I'm holding it against some ice. Okay. David, prophets, yeah. And so the prophets are basically now outsiders. As far as sometimes they're insiders, like Jeremiah was of the priesthood, but even so, he ran afoul of the establishment political leadership of his time. And often this was the case with the prophets because the prophets were prophesying against what the king and the people were doing. And on some level, the king is held responsible for certain policies. Because some of the policies in Israel that led to their demise were the direct result of bad leadership. Or the king's actions, literally. When Jeroboam took over Israel and split it off from Judah to a separate kingdom of Israel in the north, I forget if it was him or yeah, it was after he had it that he was nervous that Israel would return to Judah if they kept worshiping God at Jerusalem. So he set up golden calves in at Bethel and Dan, I believe, or Samaria, whatever. But it doesn't matter exact locations right now. There were calves set up. I think there was one at Dan for sure, and I thought there was one at Samaria, or maybe that's maybe Bethel was something else. I forgot what the golden calves in Israel were set up. Huh? I used to have that at the tip of my tongue. Okay, so it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah. Remember, Isaiah prophesied in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Hezekiah is the final king under which Isaiah prophesies. You remember a lot of the prophecies we've covered were, go now forth and meet Ahaz, thou and Shear-Jashub thy son, and the conduit of the upper, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field. Oh, it just says it right there. I could have read there. Oh, they went by the same place. Wow. Yeah, that should be. It's funny. It's funny to me that I was looking in my brain for that verse. What is that? Not chapter 11. I have a song for it. I think it's like 8. At the end of the conduit of the upper pool, in the highway of the fuller's field. Yeah, I'll find it any more easy way in a second here, because we'll just go to the Bible collection. I'm not going to make you suffer with my ineptitude. So here we have, let's find Fuller. That'll be good enough. 5 results. You can't see that part. My face is blocking it. Isaiah 36 and Isaiah 7. I was just about there. Isaiah 7 verse 3. Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, go forth now and meet Ahaz, thou and Shear-Jashub thy son, at the end of the conduit. Shear-Jashub, I believe, meant the remnant shall return. At the end of the conduit of the upper pool of the highway of the fuller's field. Say to him, take heed, neither be faint-hearted at the two tails of these smoking firebrands, Rezin and Remaliah. And remember, the prophecy was that they would be ended, that they were no longer. But he says, ask me a sign. And he says, there shall be a child born, a son. We'll call his name Emmanuel, butter and honey. And I often wonder if this is referring to, of course we know it refers to Christ, but that other son of David, Hezekiah, who also, like David in his time, he is one of the people who wrote the Psalms, Hezekiah. And he was one of the kings noted most for his piety towards the Lord. He was a king that generally did right what was right in the sight of the Lord. Even though in Isaiah here we're going to see him make mistakes, or make a mistake especially, when it comes to the ambassadors of Babylon. But here we go. Let's go back. So now it came to pass in the 14th year of the reign of King Hezekiah. But he was also, but what I'm saying is, he is, I think that, in a sense, the promised king that would deliver them in this hour, that there would be a king on David's throne, that his throne would persist. That's part of the prophecy. And that's why Isaiah has, you understand, if the prophecies didn't have near fulfillments, a lot of times people wouldn't hang on to the prophecies. There are a lot of books out there that aren't considered canonical to the Bible because they're unremarkable, or they have a fake feel to them. As I observed when I was young, and I read the Gospel of Thomas and stuff like that, I don't know, it just has a fake gospel feel to it. It just felt wrong. That's what I often say to people. I had a thing about pseudepigrapha and stuff. When people say, what about all the pseudepigrapha? Well, read it and see what you think. Now, I'm not going to teach you here because, I don't know, I guess I could, right? I'm sure people would be interested in that, but it's like we have so much of the Bible we don't understand. It seems odd to go into things that weren't included in the canon. To try, I guess if I felt like we'd studied the entire Bible and we were just desperate to look for more things to study, I suppose then we could look at the Apocrypha and Pseudepigrapha and at least comment on them. I've always wanted to take a deeper dive on that. It's been a long time since I read either of them. So, my take on them is not very fresh. Okay. It came to pass in the 14th year of Hezekiah, that Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the defense cities of Judah and took them. And the king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh from Lachish to Jerusalem unto King Hezekiah with a great army. And he stood by the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field. And that's like I said, that's an important place, because that's where Isaiah met with Ahaz to promise a son. A son would be given, a son, and then he said, what a son. You'll call him God with us. And all these things. If you apply them to Hezekiah, they seem great exaggerations, hyperboles. But he saved his people in their time by being faithful to God. He didn't do much else. It wasn't like he rode out to battle with his sword flashing and defeated the Assyrians himself. But no, he relied upon the Lord as Isaiah had counseled. And God delivered, and thereby Hezekiah delivered. As many foolish kings had squandered God's offered help by being disobedient. And we can have help from God. But like he says, if you be willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and you rebel, you shall be devoured with the sword, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. That's from earlier in chapter 1, 2, 3, something like that. So, my nose stopped itching, so I think we'll be good. So, this Rabshakeh, it was said in my Bible, I remember he was possibly or probably a renegade Jew, or whatever. I don't know why. We assume that. I guess because he speaks the Hebrew language. And as often is the case, when armies come through, powerful armies like the Assyrians, or the Americans, like in Afghanistan, there are people who work with the powerful to save their skin. Or not just to save their skin, because, but also to gain benefits, right? I mean, some people... Sorry about that. I was hoping to find... Oh, I remember what I did with that t-shirt. It's behind me. Okay. I guess I need to blow my nose. I'm going to... just 1 second, I'm going to blow my nose. We'll be right back. Just need a little music here.
O Assyria, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. I will send him against a hypocritical nation.
Okay, we're back.
Against the people.
There we go. What a moment will do for you. Alright. I almost clicked stop recording, which is not what I wanted. Right, sorry. Alright. So, just like in Afghanistan, there are people who will cooperate for whatever gain they can get. Maybe they even agree, we can, because we're the good guys. But the Syrians were not. But they were powerful, and it's good not to be at the bad or at the Assyrians were exceedingly cruel. So working with them could be beneficial, to say the least. Meaning being not, subject to their cruelties and torments. It was understandable that some people would just say, you know what, no, I will serve the king of Assyria. But this guy's a high servant, so I don't know, why would he be, maybe he's just a high-ranking Assyrian who's well-educated and knows Hebrew. Then came forth unto him Eliakim, Hilkiah's son. When we read about Eliakim back in the 20s, where it talked about the nail that was fastened in the sure place, how Eliakim would replace Shebna the scribe. Now, has not happened yet. Eliakim, Hilkiah's son, which was over the house. Oh, no, he was. And Shebna the scribe. No, so Eliakim has already replaced Shebna. Okay. But Shebna is still scribe. His full humiliation is sort of, I guess, coming. But Eliakim is over the house. He has the key to the house of David. Was it Shebna? Wait a second. You know what I'm going to do? I just want to check to make sure I'm not making a mistake. I know Eliakim is the one who was promised to replace the nail that was fastened in the sure place. All right. Doing a terrible job on the production quality here. All right. We got 9 Shebna. It was 22, yeah. Get to the treasurer, even Shebna, which is over the house. He had been over the house. And the promise was that he thought he was pretty well established there, and God had said, no, you're going to lose your position. The key of the house of David is going to Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah. And we see this has come to pass. Now here, Shebna, his full fate has not been realized, though. The whole part about, where was it? 21, no, 22. I don't know, because here's, I will drive you from your station. It doesn't sound like, let me see. I don't know, I guess when it says, like, you know, his place will be removed and cut down and fall, the burden. It doesn't say Shebna. Shebna is only personally brought up at the beginning, when he talks about the nail that is fastened in a sure place. It could be somewhat a, what is it? Yeah. Shebna comes in verse 15. And perhaps the office is more the concern. I don't know. Let's just go back to the text. It's not worth obsessing about. Shebna the scribe and Joah, Asaph's son, the recorder. I don't know if that's Asaph of Psalms fame or not. The Psalms of Asaph, Asaph was another one of the psalmists. I don't know if that is the Asaph. We could look it up here. Let's see if I have any notes here. If you're curious, I am. Because it would be worth noting, wouldn't it? So, chapter 36, verse 2. I'm sorry, verse 3. Shebna the scribe. Yeah, the 7th. No, it's interesting. I should say these verses take place, or this whole thing, after Hezekiah's reformation, because Hezekiah had done a reformation where he, and it's interesting because it's not till his grandson's day that they actually find the book of the law and they read it and realize how badly they screwed up, as I recall. Of course, that could have been recently lost. 2 Chronicles 29. Let's just look it up here. First of all, put that away. Since this text itself is not going to afford us a whole lot of insight, it'll be good to understand the background, because that's the main thing we want to get is the big story. I gotta sneeze again. Oh, I just sorry. Okay. Oh, we want 2 Chronicles 29. I'm gonna sneeze again. I gotta mute really quick. Here we go. Every time I click the mute button, it's got to make that go away. Unless I minimize it first. All right. Hezekiah began to reign when he was 20 and 5 years old. 5 and 20 years old, sorry. And he reigned 9 and 20 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David his father had done. He, in the first year of his reign, in the first month, opened the doors of the house of the Lord and repaired them. And he brought in the priests and the Levites, and gathered them together in the east street. And he said unto them, Hear me, ye Levites. Sanctify now yourselves, and sanctify the house of the Lord God of your fathers, and carry forth the filthiness out of the house, out of the holy place. For our fathers have trespassed, and then done that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, our God, and have forsaken him, and have turned away their faces from the habitation of the Lord, and turned their backs. Also they have shut up the doors of the porch, and put out the lamps, and have not burned incense, nor offered burnt offerings to the holy place unto the God of Israel. Wherefore the wrath of the Lord was upon Judah and Jerusalem, and he hath delivered them to trouble, to astonishment, and to hissing, as you see with your eyes. For lo, our fathers have fallen by the sword, and our sons, and our daughters, and our wives are in captivity for this. Now it is in my heart to make a covenant with the Lord God of Israel, that his fierce wrath may turn away from us. My sons, be not now negligent, for the Lord hath chosen you to stand before him, to serve him, and that you should minister unto him, and burn incense. Then the Levites arose, Mahath, the son of the names of them, yes, all these dudes, the sons of so-and-so. I'm not reading it, because it'll just be me stumbling through a lot of names. Shimri, Jael, etc., the sons of Asaph, a song for the sons of Korah. That's different. I know the sons of Korah were. Korah was the gainsaying of Korah. And that's way back from the time of the wandering in the wilderness. Yeah, the word Rabshakeh actually means political officer. And then it says probably a renegade Jew. Which, it's funny, it's not anti-Semitic to say someone's a renegade Jew. It doesn't make any sense. I'm going to sneeze again. All right. So, I'm sorry. Yeah. As far as Asaph, it doesn't say who he is. All right. You see, he reformed. They gathered their brethren, sanctified themselves, and came according to the commandment. And the priests went into the inner part. And this is all the details of what they did. But that's Hezekiah. He called the people to righteousness. He called the priests to their duties. He returned the people to serving the Lord. And that's why God delivers him. Because he's faithful. And he delivers the city. And Judah is spared, and the throne of David is preserved. Okay. I should mention, verse 1, we didn't comment. I've commented it on many times. Look at it. He came up against all the defense cities of Judah and took them. That means all the major cities were laid siege to and overthrown. Only Jerusalem left. That doesn't mean every little hamlet. The Assyrians didn't necessarily go around to every corner. There's always a remnant. But I mean, the major cities taken. They've already been weakened from war with the Assyrians, war with Israel, and then Israel was weakened against, Israel and Judah had a civil war, and then the Assyrians sweep in. So no wonder. Like I said, our fathers are dead by the sword, our wives and children are taken captive. That's all our doing. So, verse Asaph's son, the recorder. So these government officials, Eliakim, who's over the house, Shebna the scribe, they're all sort of these are political jobs. Verse 4, and Rabshakeh said unto them, say ye now to Hezekiah, thus saith the great king, the king of Assyria, what confidence is this wherein thou trustest? I say, sayest thou, but they are but vain words. I have counsel and strength for war. Now, on whom dost thou trust, that thou rebellest against me? These are the words of the king of Assyria. Lo, thou trustest in the staff of this broken reed on Egypt, whereon if a man lean, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all that trust in him. But if thou say to me, we trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah hath taken away, and said to Judah and Jerusalem, ye shall worship before this altar? Now therefore give pledges, I pray thee, to my master, the king of Assyria, and I will give thee 2,000 horses, if thou be able on thy part to set riders upon them. How then wilt thou turn away the face of one captain of the least of my master's servants, and put thy trust on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? And am I now come up without the Lord against this land to destroy it? The Lord said to me, go up against this land and destroy it. And then said Eli, then's their response. But let's look, before they give their response, let's look at his little speech. This is the words of the king of Assyria to the king of Israel, who has rebelled against him because they became, what's the word I want? Vassals, essentially, to the king of Assyria at some previous time because of they had invaded before, taken Israel captive, and made Judah a tribute nation, meaning they would pay, basically, the Assyrians to not destroy them. And the Assyrians would be happy to take their money. Because, it's always better to have someone, you can kill the goose, but that stops them from laying the golden eggs, it stops the gold from flowing. Golden eggs, it's like just eggs. And you can kill a chicken and get one meal out of it. We can have eggs for a while, anyways, right? For years, actually. It's a trade-off. But it's a pretty poor bargain. If you're considering it that way. I mean, though it's different, right? Anyways, they could just sack the city and then walk away with everything. That's cool. Or they could accept, let them keep their city, but they keep paying us a steady income. It's just like that thing with the lottery winners. Most people go for the whole lump sum, instead of the, $4,000 a week for the rest of your life or whatever. Okay. And so he asks them, what are you so confident about? How dare you rebel against me? What is the confidence you have that you're trusting in? I say, you say, but these are but vain words. I have counsel and strength for. You say you have counsel and strength for war? We're saying that's vain word. That's just talk. You have no hope of overcoming me. You can't fight. On whom? So who it is that you're trusting? Egypt? And we had talked about Egypt. Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help. He says, nope, the Egyptians shall help in vain. No help from them. The Lord had already said it. And he compares them to a staff. It's like a broken reed. You try to rest your hand on it, it goes right through your hand. Ow! Meaning it's not a good place to put your hand. Not a good place to rest. It's like sitting down on a needle. Doesn't sound like the right way to sit, doesn't it? Then he says, but if you say we trust in God, in our God, the Lord our God, isn't he the one whose high places and altars Hezekiah has taken away? Because you understand, I said this before, people continue to worship the Lord often, but they would not do it according to the regulations. So they would build altars in every town. The thing is, and for sacrifice, and it was only supposed to be sacrificed at Jerusalem. It's altars you can pray to God anywhere, but the service of the Lord was to be done at the temple, and it was very specific how it was to be done. But people, because they don't want to go up to Jerusalem, and they don't have the faith to believe they can get the benefits of faith without having the altar and the sacrifice right there. So the land was proliferated with altars to God and to idols. It's not like they completely forgot the worship of the Lord. The temple was almost completely disused because there was so much religion in the land. Like, why go up to Jerusalem to worship the Lord when you can worship Asherah over here? And Yahweh has an altar over here too. A lot of times the people tended not so much to completely turn their back on the Lord, but to turn their back on his commandments and worship him their own way. I don't know. People might say, as I say that, I think like, well, Paul, aren't you the type of person who does your own thing? Well, it is not my own thing in respect to God. My own thing in respect to men, yes. And you could argue like, well, doesn't all of it come from men? Meaning that everything we know about God in the Bible, anyways, everything that's written in the Bible came through men. You know what I mean? So whatever we see is filtered through human beings. We have to trust in their integrity that they actually faithfully reported what God's will was. That's something we have to something we have to wrestle with as Christians and as any believer in the scriptures. To what degree do we find them reliable? You don't have to wrestle with it. Some people do. Some people don't. Some people just have very solid faith without needing a lot of basis for it, which is fine with me because I believe also. So I believe having a basis, but not everyone needs a big explanation of every little thing. And so, anyways, when he says, that's why he says, isn't he the one whose high places and altars Hezekiah has taken away? Because Hezekiah also removed the altars and the high places. There were a lot of times when people would clean up stuff, they would remove Asherah and stuff, and the worst abuses of the idols, but they would leave the high places. The thing is, the high places were always a breeding ground for idolatry. Because I always noticed, and when I was young, I had this, I don't know if I call it, I don't know what to call it. I had a thought I engaged with frequently, that there should be some sort of equivalent idolatry today. And I thought, in some ways, that Christ, if he wasn't accurate, like if you didn't have the right Jesus, in fact, I used to talk about this a lot. I still believe it. I don't disbelieve this. But I realize that you can go too far, too fast. And this is what I mean. I thought, well, if you have a corrupt understanding of who Jesus is, it's like you're not even worshiping him. It's like you're worshiping some sort of idol, some sort of fake image of what Jesus is not. Well, one second. Let me just blow my nose. We'll have a brief intermission, and we'll be right back. Okay. I'm not even a little sick, but I got a runny nose, that's for sure. All right, sorry. I thought that if you worship Jesus wrong, it was almost like worshiping an idol. And people, Orthodox Christians, like they look at people who don't believe in the Trinity, or let's say who actively deny it. So it's one thing not to believe in the Trinity, like you've never heard of it, you never heard it explained that way, and just have a vague idea. It doesn't necessarily mean you've bought into a heresy. It just means you don't know what you believe. I think that's a very reasonable position to be in. Like where I'm not a Trinitarian, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, and I'm not a Mormon. Or I'm not a, who was the other, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormon have a similar incorrect belief about the divinity of Christ, I believe, right? They both err on the side of he's not really God. Yeah. Jehovah's Witnesses say he is a God. The Mormons think he's some sort of angel. And then on the other side, you have like they call it Jesus only sometimes, but it's basically modalism, where you have a God who is just playing role playing. It's just one, not just one God, but there's no distinct son. There's no distinct son of God who could interact with the Father and genuinely pray to him as a distinct person, but rather God putting on a show in which he is just doing these things purely like there's no real basis to it. Like the father-son relationship is not real. I have trouble getting into that because I'm like, okay, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. Because it seems that is not enlightening. It's the opposite of enlightening. It's obscuring. Like once you get to the part where you're denying the divinity of Christ, you get into doctrines that kind of obscure the light, the truth. At least in my opinion, So, and Orthodox Christians will look at that and say that's a cult. That's not mainstream Christianity, and I don't know how people feel about it precisely. And people get into questions like, can they be saved, and on all this stuff. It's like that's between God and each person and their faith. As far as what he's going to put up with. But yeah, it's true though that on some level, if we distort the doctrines we can really distort the doctrine of Christ to the point where it becomes unrecognizable. And that's kind of what these high places would represent, is that they worshipped all kinds of things on these high places, starting with, maybe it's like, well, we'll just worship the Lord, but it's like, but as it becomes corrupted, because that's what happens, is like, it opens the door to doing other things. To other people coming along, oh, you have an altar here. Do you mind if I'm a traveler? Or do you mind if I worship my Asherah here? It's just, oh, I don't want to be rude. It's like, but I do have an altar here. I don't know exactly how it goes or how it went. But it's clear that the high places were a source of ongoing corruption in Israel. Well, Hezekiah took them all away. He completely reformed. Sometimes it'll say, though, a king will remove the high places that were not removed by the previous king, meaning one king will remove some because they were so numerous. Like it says, their land is full of idols. They worship the work of their own hands. It says Isaiah. There's 1, 2, or 3. Therefore, give pledges. He's saying, tell me, how many people will you commit? I'll give 2,000 horses. Give me pledges. Put 2,000 men on them. Set riders on these horses. And they'll serve the king of Assyria. Send them out in the army. He's asking for another bribe. Pay us off again. How are you going? So it's an offer of peace, sort of. How will you turn away the face of one captain? Judah is a total wreck. He said, maybe you could get together 2,000 horsemen. If you can get together 2,000 horsemen, send them to me. I don't want to waste 2,000 horsemen. If you got something you think you can fight with, that's the kind of attitude. It's like, what is the thing you have confidence in? Can you even put together 2,000 men who can ride horses? You got that? You're going to trust in Egypt? Well, Egypt isn't here. And we are. And anyone who trusts them is a fool. All right, 1 second here. If I knew I was going to have such a sinus problem, I wouldn't have done this study. I already had a headache, and it's gone now, but the sinus problem has reared its ugly head. I hate that. I would have just canceled, but honestly. So he's saying, you've taken away the altars of God, told them to worship at Jerusalem. See, they don't quite get it. They somehow think that these altars to God in the field are acceptable. So they see it as like, how can you trust in God? You just took away all his altars, dude. Very confusing. Like, if you want to please the gods, any god, and you should probably try to please all of them, as usually the ancient attitude was, the more the merrier. Like, we wouldn't want to offend one of the gods, because they had a belief in many. And so taking away all his altars just seems like the altars of the land. It's like, that's the places they didn't get it. Like, the more altars, the better. The more religious people are. You like to see an altar in every home, is the way they look at it. The heathen. They kept little home idols. In fact, wealthy people would have very nice idols in their home that they would pray to. And then he says in verse 10, and am I now come up without the Lord against this land to destroy it? He's saying, like, I played that song at the beginning, right? O Assyrian, the rod of my anger, and the staff in their hand is my iniquity. I didn't mean to play that again just yet. I was just getting ready for the end. So, yeah, God had said, the Assyrian is coming to destroy. The staff in their hand is my indignation. But there's more to it than that, right? It's already been promised the Assyrian would pay, ultimately, himself also, for his cruelty. Yes, God said, go up against this land. The Lord said to me, go up against this land and destroy it. But now he's preparing to deliver Jerusalem. Then said Eliakim and Shebna and Joah to Rabshakeh, speak, I pray thee, unto thy servants in the Syrian language, for we understand it. Speak not unto us in the Jews' language, in the ears of the people that are on the wall. Would you please talk to us in a language that these people don't understand? We don't want them to crap their pants. We don't want them to hear what the king of Assyria says. Just so speak to us in Syrian. We understand that. We're the learned class. Talk to us in the Syrian tongue. We understand. No, stop using Jewish. Don't talk Jewish. They hear you. And of course, this is obviously a really dumb thing to say. Really dumb. And it leads to one of the funniest verses in the Bible. But Rabshakeh said, hath my master sent me to thy master and to thee to speak these words? Hath he not sent me to the men that sit upon the wall, that they may eat their own dung and drink their own piss with you? Then Rabshakeh stood and cried with a loud voice in the Jews' language, and said, hear ye the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus saith the king, let not Hezekiah deceive you, for he shall not be able to deliver you. Neither let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city shall not be delivered to the hand of the king of Assyria. Sorry, I didn't read it right. saying, the Lord shall deliver us. This city shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria. Hearken not to Hezekiah. For thus saith the king of Assyria, make an agreement with me by a present, and come out to me, and eat ye every one of his vine, and every one of his fig tree, and drink ye every one the waters of his own cistern. Beware, lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. Have any of the gods of the nations delivered his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? And have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Who are they among all the gods of these lands that have delivered their land out of my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand? But they held their peace and answered him not a word, for the king's commandment was, saying, answer him not. All right. Yeah, whatever, my head's better. So, again, they give him this speech where they basically say, we're worried about them hearing you talk, so please speak another language. Just not a very powerful move. They should just order the men off the wall. Clear the wall. Don't reveal to the enemy your weakness like that. It's embarrassing. Please don't talk in front of the people. They'll lose heart. They won't want to fight. And so Rabshakeh said, my master sent me to speak these words, the Hebrew ones, not other words in another language that thou canst not understand. And it's interesting because with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people, the jabbering of the Assyrians. But now you will not hear a speech that you cannot hear. It was a sign also that he was speaking to them in Hebrew, because God said you would understand the speech. You will see Jerusalem, a tent that shall not be taken down. So the Assyrians sent them to speak in Hebrew. Usually, though that can be intimidating, and it's unusual, but I think it's unusual. Foreign invading armies don't usually care. Come out and bring me an interpreter. He has sent me to speak these words, and to whom? To the men that sit on the wall, so they can eat their own dung and drink their own piss with you, because that's what happens in a siege. I guess. Or whatever, so they can eat S, and drink piss with you. That's why when someone said to me, the Bible has verses that condone slavery. It's like the Bible has verses that condone eating crap. And this isn't the only one. You have to put it into context, though, right? That's the whole point. Out of context. I mean, this could be, the Bible says that they may eat their own dung and drink. That's a commandment of God. It's in the scriptures. Shouldn't you do it? Well, it was Rabshakeh, and it was the situation. That's how all the Bible should be taken, in some sort of context. I'm going to blow my nose here real quick. I should do more than just I should actually, next time I'll put that up. So Rabshakeh then cries to the man on the wall, hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. All his pride starts reverberating through these words. Don't let Hezekiah deceive you. He shall not be able to deliver you. He's wrong. But he's got a lot of reasons to think he's right. No one stopped the Assyrian yet. The Assyrian, Sennacherib, was an incredibly successful military campaigner. Their empire was at its peak. In fact, this is the peak. From here on, this is the end. This is where the beginning of their decline. This is the beginning of the decline of the Assyrian Empire. It was a very short-lived empire to begin with. Well, I mean, not to begin with, but in the end. Neither let him trust you, the Lord. So saying, don't, Hezekiah won't deliver you, presumptively with military might, or that the Lord's going to deliver you, and that the city's not going to be delivered to the king of Assyria. Are you kidding me? We're going to take Jerusalem. It's not that. Jerusalem wasn't like a super fortress or anything. I mean, it was the capital, so it'd probably be the most fortified city in Israel, but nothing the Assyrians couldn't handle as far as their tech and all that, and the army they'd brought. Rabshakeh estimates that Hezekiah could maybe put out 2,000 soldiers against his 100,000. He's not particularly intimidated. He's not impressed with the walls. They repaired a lot of things. You know, he talks about how they repaired. Hezekiah also made a special conduit, Hezekiah's conduit, to bring water into the city, so they had sure waters. The Assyrians don't know about that. They think they're going to be drinking piss, like they got no water in the city. Because this was a secret project done in the days of Hezekiah, I believe. They found Hezekiah's tunnel, actually. I remember watching a documentary on that years ago. Like 20 years ago, so if it's something not quite right about that, if it isn't Hezekiah's tunnel, if it's Ahaz's tunnel, forgive me. But yeah, they made that. So he offers them peace, though. He doesn't really, they've taken so much spoil. It's amazing that he's even offering this. Make a present. Pay us off. Come out. We'll be friends again. It's, pretty forgiving for the Assyrian. But you can kind of see why, because they'll tell it later. The Assyrian hears he has to rush back home, as I recall. You got to couch it a little like that. It's fun to approach it like that. Meaning, like I said, I could work a lot ahead of time, but whatever. Again, that everyone under his vine, everyone his fig tree, everyone the waters of his own cistern. It's an analogy for, hey, live in peace, man. You work, you eat. You make a vine, you plant it, you get to eat the grapes. How about that? That's freedom, man. You make a cistern to collect water, drink the water from it. Just be prosperous. We'll tax you a little, but go to work again. This land we've kind of stripped this land of all the wealth. You go back to work, and we'll see you in 20 years. That's kind of the way just go back to work. Because again, they do like the goose to lay the eggs. A lot of these ancient empires were built they were just raiders. Beware lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. Have other gods been successful? Nobody has stopped us yet. They have no respect. Ultimately, the Assyrian thinks of himself as even bigger than God, as often men do. Men who do not fear God ultimately have this very exalted view of themselves, and also of their abilities, and also they begin to think that people who trust in God are stupid because of all the victories they've had being wicked. It's like, people who some people make living dishonestly. And the people who make a living dishonestly, very often it's easy. It's an easy. Like Yoda said of the dark side of the Force. Is it more powerful? No. Easier, faster. Okay. And in some ways it's true. If you're dishonest, and it can be a fast and easy way to a kind of success. You gotta be careful though. If too much dishonesty, you get a reputation and all that stuff. Not that I'm advising it how to be a I'm not advising it. But what happens is, if people are too dishonest, if they have to walk a careful line. It's not like you just be wicked and you suddenly have raging success. There's a lot of failures at wickedness. You know what I mean? But there are many things for a clever and resourceful person who has not too many scruples. They can look at the world and see that the sky is the limit. And even that may be not the limit, We'll go even to the heavens. We'll build a tower that'll reach even to God, like the Tower of Babel. We're kind of in a Tower of Babel time now, too, because, the world isn't exactly of one speech. But it kind of is, because we kind of all understand each other again. Like, even if we have different languages, they're all pretty much translated. There's no strange speech that isn't understood by someone or can't be translated by someone. And therefore, you see the inhabitants of the world pulling together. Many of them want to have a global civilization, a global government, and all that. But I always question, you don't need a global government. Why? It would result in oppression and authoritarianism. Local government is enough. It'd be better to have more smaller governments. Like if the earth was made of many small countries. Just like the United States. I think that's one of the reasons why you look at places like Australia, what a miserable time it is there, because the government is applying one-size-fits-all solutions to the entire country arbitrarily. And it's like they become possessed of this ridiculous fear of death that has no rational basis. Meaning it's more dangerous at this point. I remember they're comparing things that are more dangerous than COVID if you live in Australia. There's a lot of there are a lot of things that are killing more people, like diabetes or something like that. It's much less deadly than that. Or it's less deadly than diabetes at this point. Which in some ways may be a preventable disease. Whereas this is an airborne, whatever. I get so sick of it. I really sort of did think it'd be over by now, but I guess not. Because they never want to give up on the authoritarianism. That's why people should have resisted from the beginning. I did. I resisted from the beginning. Not that I had much choice, what I should say is not that it made much difference. People just look at you like you're stupid and insane. But I can say I did it. They ask me, what were you doing in the summer of 2020? I'll say, I was fighting. I was fighting the whole year. I was getting yelled at. Now it's a little different. So he asks, where are the gods of all these other nations? Hamath, Arpad. Those are things referenced in the song about the Assyrian in chapter 10. Not the song, but the chapter. Is not Hamath as Arpad? Is not Jerusalem as Samaria? And he feels like it's all the same. What's different here? What's different? What should I be? This God's going to do something the other gods didn't do? I don't think so. Well, all these gods. I've conquered many gods. Why do you think this God's going to stop? You took away his altars. He said, I'm going to destroy. I don't even understand where you're coming from. You know what I mean? I'm from the Assyrian's perspective. He doesn't fear God or anything, but he sees it's prophesied and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, and then you take away the altars. And you understand there's a lot of contradiction in Israel itself. Often, the prophet is not always approved by all. Like, you could probably guess that Shebna is probably not a fan of Isaiah. Because Isaiah prophesies against him. So the opinion of all the people is not necessarily the same. Some people may not like it that Hezekiah has taken away all the altars. You know? So they answered not. Then came Eliakim the son of Hilkiah, that was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph their quarter, to Hezekiah with their clothes rent, and told him the words of Rapture. They tore their clothes. That was what people did when big, when there was bad things. They would tear out their clothes. It was a sign of distress. All kinds of distress. Anger, it could be all kinds of distress, They would rend their clothes. Not mourning particularly, though. Sometimes the shock of a loss would cause someone to tear their clothes, like a loss of a loved one or a family. But actual mourning garments would be sackcloth. Okay. So what makes you think this is any different? And here's the thing. I get the Assyrian's point. I mean, why should he think it's different? I said, he doesn't really think so. Like I said, from chapter, in his heart, he does not think so. He doesn't really think he's really serving God. He knows that's what's said. He knows that's what it says in, or the Hebrew prophets have said, or that it's been prophesied. I doubt he got a copy of Isaiah's book and read it carefully. He probably just heard. The Hebrew prophets are saying, you're destined to destroy them, That's got to be a very unpopular thing to say. Oh, chapter 11, actually. What? It's chapter 12? Right. Oh, no, it is, well, that's right, chapter 10, verse 5. That's right. I include chapter 10, verses 1 through 4 with chapter 9. That's right. That's one of the places where I thought the chapter division was bad. Chapter 10 should begin in verse... I'll show you what I'm talking about. Sorry, I went to... Oh, we're over an hour. Okay. Yeah. So... Okay, yeah. But that's what I was talking about. Here's the Assyrian, right? And he doesn't mean it. His heart doesn't think so. But it's in his heart to destroy. He doesn't really think, I'm being sent by God. He doesn't really think that. That's not really his thought. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. So, there's chapter 36. Oops. We're going to do chapter 37 tomorrow. There it is. And maybe more. We'll see how fast it starts going. Yep. So he hears it. Rends his clothes. We'll see you tomorrow, Lord willing. Until then.
O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. I will send him against a hypocritical nation. Against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge, to take the spoil, to take the prey, to tread them down like the mire of the streets. But he doesn't mean it, neither does his heart think so, but it's in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. Are not my princes altogether kings? Is not Calno, as Karshemesh is not Haman?